This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
I was just reading a scary book.
Oh my god, this is terrible. When did they get to killing the children?
This is literature? A 2-year-old could have written this.
We will be requiring a bedtime story.
Oh, I don't like this book. This is going on forever.
Oh, I just wanted to see kids fight to the death is all.
Look at me! I'm enjoying reading!
Welcome to episode 152 of the Horror of Babylon, where we discuss The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring by j.r.r. Tolkien. I am Ryan. With me, as always, is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
I wish I was high, Daniel.
And here to be talking Tolkien is my man, Hef. Say hi, Hef.
Still laughing at you.
You have no power here.
Well, damn, I can't
No idea.
You're an idiot.
Bet.
It's good to be here. I'm sorry.
Some people who do have power here are patrons. Thank you to Logan, the Full Metal patron, and Sierra, the Keyblade patron. Keyblade, Flame of the West. The Keyblade Reforged. And thank you to Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit in the Morgantown Mall, Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They opened a new shop in Crick Hollow in Buckland, which unfortunately I heard was broken into. Ron did employ somebody new named Fatty to run it, but it just turns out he was just there to cosplay as a more important character, and then some guys in black robes broke in and stole all the magic cards.
As long as he didn't say some black guys did it.
I almost did.
They stole the magic cards, and then they're like, why am I on this one?
They stole they actually only stole one magic card. It was a 4-mana artifact.
Can I sidetrack for 30 seconds?
No. Yes.
So someone sent me a short earlier. I can't remember if it was Ben or a white woman. And it was of people getting in fistfights at Costco over Pokemon cards because they were on sale and people wanted to crack packs to try to sell singles. And I'm sitting there going, like, what's your profit margin? I guess I don't play Pokemans.
So, like hundreds.
It's absurd, actually.
But they were like beating the crap out of each other over like those, like, I guess like those boxes, the rectangle boxes. I don't know what you call those.
Pokemon singles can be, actually right now, like the way like Magic has reprinted their stuff into the ground, like Pokemon cards are worth more.
Okay, I have more Pokemon cards.
Aside from like like old Magic cards, like not.
Yeah.
I literally went to an LGS today where they had the new Pokemon set that came out, and he said he didn't get any, and there were people in line out front of his store looking to try to buy them so they could scalp them, and he was like, "Yeah, sorry, I didn't get any." It's a big thing right now.
I thought it was funny, but
yeah,
apparently it is a big thing.
Oh yeah.
Emma is trying to get one of each Pikachu and one of each Psyduck within reason, and even there's like Psyduck ones that are like 3 digits that are so expensive that we're not. It's like, okay, I understand Pikachu because there's been a Pikachu promo for everything. But,
yeah.
Okay. All right. Four Horsemen is sponsoring a giveaway. We will be giving away a Secret Lair Chucky that was given to us by Four Horsemen Comics and Gaming. To enter, all you have to do is interact with us on social media in some way. Comment on this video, comment on one of our social media posts anytime between now and our Two Towers episode, and you will be entered in this giveaway. Patrons already get 1 entry. They can get a second one by interacting with us in some way on social media. This means we have to make social media posts, damn it.
Remind me, and I'll also post it on mine and on my YouTube channel.
But at the beginning of our Two Towers episode, we will pick a name to get this Chucky Secret Lair drop. So thank you for Horsemen.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so trigger warning. High fantasy. Exposition, background information, description, Tom Bombadil.
his wife, because I wasn't prepared.
Thick
Goldberry!
I was not prepared.
thick bitches.
I was not prepared. I was not prepared to be simping in Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
River's daughter!
Was it because she's always wet?
Yep.
oh, I know I was.
What?
Any other triggers? Whose pick? This was my... Well, really, there are 3 Lord of the Rings books, and we just decided we'll each use one of our picks. I assigned this one to myself because I go back and forth about which of the 3 is my favorite, but I think more often than not, I identify Fellowship of the Ring as my favorite. Probably primarily because it includes the most like lore and world building and Silmarillion references, because Two Towers and Return of the King are a lot more fast-paced plot-wise.
Yeah.
This involves a lot of the setup, which is a lot of what I really enjoy. Although I still think that Two Towers has one of the best endings in like literature history, but
I'm almost at the end of it. I have 2 hours left.
It's like, it's not as good as Taipan, but it's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Taipan, that's a hard thing to beat.
It's really good. Okay, so our history with the Lord of the Rings, or more specifically the Fellowship of the Ring, and I kind of got into this in the Hobbit episode. Like, I grew up with my dad reading The Hobbit to my brother and I, and watching the Hobbit movie. I remember sitting down and trying to read Fellowship, and it was just too much for 2 little kids. So we never made it through the book. But so my first experience with this story was actually the movie. And I didn't actually read the book until I was in my 30s.
That surprises me.
This is my 3rd time reading Fellowship. But The Hobbit I've read literally more times than I can count.
This is my first time with the books. The movies, that's the nature of things. If you somewhere along the way, if you've never read these books, I would, if you told me you'd never seen Lord of the Rings, I would find that very unusual, like the films. So I saw the films first.
They're for nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that of the 3 movies, The Fellowship was my favorite movie of the 3, I think. I go back to it more often than not, but I'll say ill-prepared for quite the amount of world building I got in this novel. Yeah, I see you over there, but yeah, I was not ready for it. I knew there was. I knew it was dense, but I didn't know exactly how much world building was have. I was pleasantly surprised, though.
All of it.
To be the first half, like, if you'd have told me, if nobody told me that for the first half of the book they barely got out of the Shire. And I'm like, I don't know, like
Parties are important.
They are.
Yeah.
He was 11 years old.
Yeah.
Thank you, Magic Ring.
God, you're such
I also didn't know that, like, what was it, 7 years or something?
17 years.
17 years went by between when Gandalf left and he came back.
Yeah.
That's so hard to comprise.
Well, the movies compress the timeline a lot.
It was just funny to me because, like, in a book that totally makes sense, though. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, they'd walk everywhere. They rode horses. That was their travel. Like, I totally get that. That makes sense. It's just funny to hear it.
Yeah.
I watched the movies and now I read the book for this podcast.
Yay.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Okay, so let's jump into background. The Fellowship of the Ring is the first of 3 volumes of the epic novel, The Lord of the Rings. The Fellowship consists of a foreword written by the author in which he discusses writing The Lord of the Rings, a prologue, which is really an essay, I'd say, that's titled Concerning Hobbits and Other Matters, which was written in the 50s where books were not as readily available as they are today. So he had to assume that a large amount of the people reading The Lord of the Rings would never have read The Hobbit. So he wrote a prologue essay explaining what hobbits are. And then the main narrative, which is divided into 2 books. So originally, Tolkien wanted to publish The Lord of the Rings as 1 volume.
Oh, man.
And he wanted to combine it with the Silmarillion.
He was like, fuck Shogun.
So he did The Hobbit, and he's like, now I want to publish the Silmarillion. And Edwin and Unwin said, no, we're not doing that. You're going to write a sequel to The Hobbit instead. And he's like, fine. But when I publish it, I'm going to put the Silmarillion in with it. And they're like, no. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to publish, it's this long, and I want it as one book. And they're like, no, we're going to break that up into 3 books.
I like the idea that he's arguing with them kind of like a child would whenever like they don't get the treat they want. He's just like, no, you can't have it. Okay, but listen, Snickers. Can I have the Snickers? No, you can have the oatmeal cookie. Okay, but can I have like a raisinette?
Now you're getting an avocado.
Yeah. It just gets
now you have to
progressively-
eat carrot cake.
He's like negotiating in the worst way possible.
So this book was released July 29th, 1954. It is a sequel to The Hobbit. All the book covers say that The Hobbit is a prequel to The Lord of the Rings. No, The Lord of the Rings is a sequel to The Hobbit. It was followed by The Two Towers, which was released on November 11th, 1954. He envisioned it as a single volume work divided into 6 books, which it is still divided into 6 books, just released across 3 different volumes.
I'm sitting here thinking about it, and he is probably going, how will people understand the story if they don't know the lore?
Yeah,
That's why I wanted the Silmarillion in there.
So, as far as adaptations go, I started listing all of them, and it was just too many.
Yeah.
So we're just going to focus on
The big ones?
on TV and film, mostly. So there's a Swedish live-action television film of The Fellowship of the Ring that was released in 1971 called Sagan om Ringen.
It sounds like something you would read.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't found it yet.
It's actually the 5th ring book.
And then, of course, there's Ralph Bakshi's 1978 animated film, The Lord of the Rings, which adapts Fellowship and most of The Two Towers. Adore that movie. Highly recommend that movie. There's the Finnish live-action TV miniseries, Hobbit, which adapts The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. I've watched part of that. It's really, really hard to watch.
So it's not even like funny bad?
No, it's not even like funny bad. And then, of course, there's Peter Jackson's 2001 film, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. There's a live-action television play of the Fellowship of the Ring from Soviet Russia that was recently rediscovered, and it just like in the past like year or two. It only aired once on Soviet TV, and a version of it just got released onto YouTube very recently. I haven't gotten a chance to watch that yet. I've watched the Hobbit one, and it's also terrible, but it's funny terrible.
Okay, well, I like funny terrible.
And then there are many, many radio dramas and broadcasts of such. There are many musical adaptations, like theatrical plays, blah blah blah. There are two audiobook adaptations: the 1990 audiobooks narrated by Rob Inglis, and the 2021 audiobooks read by Andy Serkis,
Which are very good.
Yeah, I've read both. Both are very good. You did Andy Serkis. You're not half. You're Daniel. Daniel, which one did you do?
On what? I'm sorry, I phased out there for a second. My brain
Did you do the Andy Serkis audiobook or the Rob Inglis audiobook?
I think it's the Rob Inglis one. Hold on, I can pull it up right now, because the Ford I got as an afterword, so it wasn't at the beginning when I was listening to the book.
That's weird.
If this ever loads.
I like Andy Serkis does when he does the characters, he does like
legit voices.
Yeah, like he actually does a pretty decent job of like sounding like they did in the films.
Yeah.
Like all of the hobbits have different accents.
Yeah, you can tell who's talking without the book telling you.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he does that.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it way more distinguishable.
Okay, I don't
when
know
you're
where it
listening
says
to
on
him
here.
talk
I
about
did this one.
Well, they both have that Rings of Power cover now. Yes, you did the Rob Inglis one.
Okay, so I did Rob Inglis.
They're good too.
Yeah, I mean he didn't do a bad job.
No, he's good. If you put a gun to my head, I'd say do the Andy Serkis.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
Structure and themes. So I want to kick it to you guys to start off.
Okay.
First, just kind of what are your general thoughts
I do have
on the structure?
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, where does Koji Suzuki's rank fit into the timeline? Because I've been waiting for Sadako to show up for 2 books and it hasn't happened yet.
It'd probably be like the 27th age of Middle-earth.
Okay, so I've got a minute.
Yeah.
It's a sequel to the sequel.
Sorry, I've been wanting to make that joke for a few weeks. I'm done.
No, it's okay.
You've just been sitting on that for a month.
Yeah. I literally wrote that joke down and was like, I know Ryan's not going to be happy, but I have to make the joke.
So
you go first.
General thoughts on structure.
This isn't a criticism, but if you would ask me to like explain the book to somebody, I would say it's exposition, the novel. Because a lot of the times the storytelling is conveyed through, you run into a character and then the character explains everything that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Which isn't bad, but instead of picturing the action, I picture 2 characters talking to each other, and that's my hang-up. Whereas if it was like even first person and you would have someone telling you the story, I wouldn't have this issue. I don't know where the issue's coming from for me. But that's how they convey a lot of information in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Is 2 characters meet up and they tell each other stories. Like, oh, this is what I've been up to. Okay, well, this is what I've been doing. Oh, this is what happens on this part of the planet. And this is what's going to happen when we go over there. And then they go over there, and then they get separated. And you get a little bit of somebody doing something, and then the characters meet back up and go, oh, well, this is what happened when I was over in this area. And that's kind of the structure of this book, is exposition the book. Which, it's not a good or a bad thing. It's just how I perceive the book.
Yeah.
And how it chose to tell its story.
That's all true.
This book is, like, whenever people, like, before I started, like, reading, you know, I always got told by people that most fantasy is a lot of exposition. It's a lot of just descriptions that maybe go a little too deep into things as far as the world building. I am convinced a little bit that the people that told me about how fantasy is written and how everything is over descriptive were not talking about Lord of the Rings.
I think it's only overly descriptive in terms of they're describing stuff that they did, but not like...
They're not describing the setting. Like, he does describe the setting, but it's not like...
But it's through the lore of which they're all talking amongst themselves about.
It's information bits.
The people that I talked to that like told me about like high fantasy and like how they were describing everything were... I don't know if maybe they just weren't like... It's probably like a mix of them not explaining correctly versus my own ignorance on it. Because in my mind, whenever they would tell me that, they're describing the world.
Yeah.
As if they were explaining the world. Whereas, that's not exactly what Tolkien is doing. His characters are telling you about the world they exist in.
And they're talking as if they know the information,
right.
Which is how you tell that story.
Which is not the same as being, like, it's not the same as, like, getting, you know, like a fantasy history.
It's not quite Tom Clancy describing a gun for 3 pages.
Right, yeah, I'm not getting, like...
It's more similar to the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
I'm not getting a description on, like, how the horizon is, like, 3 different kind of colors.
Yeah, and I think part of my problem is...
Just like Saruman's robes.
Is, I read Game of Thrones before I ever read this book. And Game of Thrones tells the story by each chapter is from a different character's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's describing what the characters are doing instead of them talking to each other about what they did.
Right.
And so I was kind of and I've also watched the movie first, so I was expecting them to be like describing the battle scene, but then, you know, you learn about Tolkien, and he's like, I don't really care about battles because war sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel that where he's like, I'm going to gloss over all this blood and gore because this sucks.
They're not action-packed novels.
Yeah.
They really aren't. I was kind of surprised by that.
Because the movies kind of sell that aspect of the
they
world.
glorify it. They 100% glorify the warfare.
Which almost feels counter to what the books are trying to do or talk about.
It very much is. Like, these books are about language and storytelling and
trying to avoid war.
Yeah.
Small spoiler for the next book. There's like an entire chapter where it's just one dude saying, hey, you should probably surrender so we don't have to kill each other. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good.
So what is it like reading Lord of the Rings for the first time in your 30s? And kind of give me a comparison. Like, what what's that experience like compared to reading The Hobbit for the first time in your 30s? How's it different? How's it the same?
I think The Hobbit feels it feels a lot more like a children's book, but it also there's some stuff that I don't like in this book that I kind of liked in The Hobbit that I thought fit better. And so some of the stuff in The Hobbit I felt worked better than it does in this book.
In a children's novel as opposed to an adult novel.
Yeah. Exposition's one of the things. Singing is another one of the things. That was one of my least favorite
parts. You didn't like the songs?
I did not like the songs.
I hate you. We're no longer friends.
Every time they sang, I was just like, please stop singing.
Even Tom Bombadil?
He's the only song I liked.
Okay, thank God.
If you listen to the Andy Serkis version, that might be better.
He sings them.
He sung them in this one, too.
Yeah,
oh, did he?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
Is it in the same tune? Or is it different? Or do you know?
I mean, he also does voices, but probably not as good as Andy Serkis, because Andy Serkis is a great voice actor, too.
It's actually kind of... I would not expect Andy Serkis to also be good at singing.
Yeah.
I was like...
It's also not fair how many things
I was like, stop being good at things, please.
Voice acting and singing are very related skills.
I'm not arguing.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it kind of pissed me off that he was that wonderful of a singer.
I'm so used to so many voice actors only being able to do the one voice because I watch anime.
True.
So they only ever do that one voice, but then you listen to Andy Serkis, I'm like, oh yeah, people used to have range.
You hear that, Vic Mignogna? Listen to our podcast.
The anime voice actors are the ones who couldn't get jobs for Disney and DreamWorks and Warner Brothers.
Troy Baker is my go-to example. I'm like, God, if I could stop hearing his voice, I'd be so happy.
So what was it like for you reading this the first time in your 30s, and how is it compared to reading The Hobbit?
I like this cover better.
Very similar to him. I could definitely see the influence of The Hobbit, like why it's as renowned as it is. I just didn't really like vibe with it as much. You did a very good thing when you told me that the Fellowship, like the Lord of the Rings books, are not necessarily very long, but they're very dense.
Yeah.
The Hobbit did not have that level of density, and...
Well, I just decided that I'm not using my fourth pick for the Silmarillion.
I was thinking about it as a joke.
I mean, it's not that I'm not saying I dislike The Hobbit at all. I'm not, it was still a good book. But as a person in my 30s, I think the biggest adjustment is that I'm an adult. I've read a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. I've experienced a lot of things. And reading The Fellowship for the first time was a strict improvement because it already capitalized on something that I already enjoyed. And I knew I was going to enjoy the story because even if, I only had the movies experience, theoretically, movies should still be some part of the book, right?
It's still the same basic story.
Right.
Yeah.
But to me, it felt more like I was reading this book and getting bonus content. Because there is some stuff that's different. There's a lot of stuff that's different in the book from the movie.
Yeah.
But there are still a main line plot point. You're still kind of following the same quest. Mm-hmm. So to me, this was like getting a fresh perspective on something I already really enjoyed.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I always get addicted to looking at art from before the movies came out to see what people thought things looked like.
Like Aragorn in this?
Yeah, like Aragorn. I wanted to see I wanted to see pre-Balrog, pre-movie Balrogs.
I love the Balrog in the animated movie.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's so sweet.
What's the thing on his head?
It's just a little hat.
No, it's I don't know what it is. I don't know.
I don't know.
I hope this is actually Boromir, not.
I really hope it's Don Quixote.
Or maybe it's supposed to be Legolas.
They're getting ready to tackle a
No, he's got a sword. It's probably supposed to be Aragorn.
I hope it's a spear and we're both just horrendously wrong.
Why do they have 3 hobbits and not 4 on here? I'm mad.
One of them's using the bathroom and looking for second breakfast.
I think it's probably Sam is with Bill here. If I would say the phrase 5 homely houses to you, what do you think that means?
After reading this book, they're different. After reading this book, I would think homely homes is kind of like a hobbit's perfect little den, before that, if you told me, like, if you said the word homely home, I would think cardboard box in New York.
Yeah, same.
So, in The Hobbit, Rivendell is referred to as the last homely house because it's the last comfortable place that Thorin's company experiences before they head off into the Misty Mountains and really get their adventure started. In the Fellowship of the Ring, Frodo and gang do that 5 times. Frodo and Sam and Pippin, they leave Bag End. They stop off at Crick Hollow, at Frodo's new house, and they stay Crick Hollow. They stay there for a time. They stay at the Prancing Pony for a time. They stay in Tom Bombadil's house for a time, and Rivendell for a time. They stop at Farmer Maggot's and stay at his house for dinner. So, yeah, it's. I don't think there's a big like literary critique of this book that Tolkien didn't know what the heck he was doing, so he kept having them stopping and having dinner at places because he didn't know what to do with them.
I honestly just think that he was trying to emulate how people would travel in that setting, because he was a very learned man, especially when it came to history, and it's like, you go to places, you're a guest, your host takes care of you, and then you move. And he was having them travel literally thousands of miles on foot. So maybe that's me defending Tolkien, but...
Is the One Ring the ultimate MacGuffin?
I think it's the quintessential one. Like, if you would looked it up in a dictionary, it would just be the One Ring. And underneath it would say, I am not an allegory.
Well, that's the next question.
Yeah.
Hef, what about you? Do you think it's an overrated MacGuffin, or is it the best?
An overrated MacGuffin?
I
think it's like...
Or is it the MacGuffin?
I mean, probably. I mean,
it's more like a McLovin.
There's.
I mean, what's more iconic? The Lost Ark of the Covenant?
That's the thing. Like, I mean,
the Death Star plans.
No, probably the Cup of Christ.
Cup of Christ, yeah.
That's a pretty good one.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking like fantasy that people believe is fantasy, then yeah, I would say that The Ring is the essential.
I also think that they do a good job of making it feel as important as it's supposed to be, as opposed to it could literally be anything. Like, they talk about the other rings and how it relates to those rings, and how some of those rings have been found and some are lost forever.
Eaten by dragons.
Yeah, I mean, I actually like those parts of the book. I mean, just because it's exposition doesn't mean the exposition's bad. Just that's how they deliver
as long
the
as it's
information.
interesting. Like, that's the big difference. It's like, this at least stays interesting.
It doesn't feel like it's sitting there just talking nonsense to me.
Yeah, you're just, like, even if it's, like, world building that you don't necessarily understand, like, it does a good job of being, like, if you don't know it, it's just, like, that feels like it would be cool to learn about.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what makes, I think, these books work, is,
No,
it's exposition. Yeah, it's exposition, but at the same time, it's interesting exposition.
So, when these books were published in the mid-50s, and at the time, World War II was very fresh on everybody's memory, and the common literary critique was that The Lord of the Rings was an allegory for World War II, and the ring was the nuclear bomb, and because people would give evidence saying, well, he was a soldier in World War I, so of course all of this stuff that happened in World War II would be on the forefront of his mind when he was writing these. And so Tolkien in his foreword, he tries to explain the difference between being influenced by your experiences versus setting down to write an allegorical story. What are your guys' thoughts?
I agree with them, because when you try to do a one-to-one thing for your fictional story, I have an example that literally just cropped up on my timeline not long ago, but I'll get to that in a minute. But when you try to do a one-to-one, it not only does it date your work, it can pigeonhole you in a bunch of ways. Where when you're making a story more applicable, it becomes more timeless, which is probably why Lord of the Rings has lasted so long. Though people will still be insistent that no, the author's opinion is wrong.
It's an allegory for COVID.
Yeah, there will be people who read it that way and will insist that he meant for it to be an allegory for pandemics or an allegory for war. Where, no, he's just like, I just drew on my experiences and hoped that shaped the world, which...
I survived trench warfare in World War I. Obviously, that's going to influence my writing.
There's a recent Tom King comic book where a woman is yelling at Superman and saying, why didn't you get rid of COVID? And his response is, it's a virus, I can't punch it. And the comments are all just examples of Superman. Well, here's him punching time. This is why you don't do one-to-one examples in your fantastical universes. Because Superman has literally fixed space-time with his heat vision.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, he could probably have fixed COVID. You can't do one-to-one allegories, or just that was literal in that story. But
maybe they could have just written a book where he fixed COVID.
Yeah, like in the DC universe, you either make a virus so powerful it takes out superheroes, or the superheroes fix it because you live in a fantastical universe.
Right.
This is a fantastical universe that is being written using experiences that someone went through. It'd be one thing if you took Superman and went, well, I experienced this pandemic and I want to use Superman to kind of talk about my experiences and try to make kind of a timeless of, here's how isolated I felt at the time. But
F.
I'm assessing how the Fellowship was basically anti-vaxxers.
Motherfucker, I was drinking coffee.
I mean, think about it. What did they do? They don't obey the rules. They go to 5 different homely homes to spread the virus, only to find the king virus.
But their virus is freedom.
Yeah. No one can keep them chained down.
I'm going to ask you a question, but I don't want you to answer it. Because
I've never looked at this stuff before, and I've never seen that.
Luann?
Yeah, you didn't see Luann?
I bought it with you.
At Mothman, right?
Yeah, you were there when I bought it.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Deserves a spot on the wall, just like the map of Middle Earth.
Really don't.
I have a fan art of Luann from King of the Hill with the manger babies and like a D&D like she's a beast. What's it called when you...
Like a beast collar?
No, there's a word, like a druid. She's a druid.
Oh, like she can transform into them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Luann, you're acting like an idiot.
Okay.
It took 2 seconds. I'm so sorry.
I'm going to ask you a question that I don't want you to answer because I'm going to ask it to you again on our Return of the King episode, and that's when I want you to answer it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask it now so you can think about it. J.r.r. Tolkien is known as the father of modern fantasy. Is that title earned?
Yeah.
I don't want you to answer it.
I can't not answer it.
Escapism. What is escapism?
Okay, so you know how I was talking about a Superman comic that brought up fucking COVID?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is not escapism.
I do not want to think about COVID when I'm sitting there reading a Superman comic. I want to think about Superman going out and fighting crime and, like, going to the moon. I want to escape from the shit I have to deal with every day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sit there and go, man, you know what I really want to relive right now? Some war.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I want to think about right now? Mental health, because I just spent 36 hours this week working in a mental health hospital. I want to go and just think about like being cussed out by patients as I'm playing my Dragon Ball Z Sparky Zeros. Like, I think they need more representation. So just add in a schizophrenic who calls me the N-word for 20 minutes.
Vegeta?
Yeah, just make it Vegeta. Vegeta calls me the N-word for 20 minutes. Then I have to look down at myself going, what vibe am I giving this patient?
What do you think Kakarot means?
Carrot.
First of all, that's his people's name. Goku is his house name.
It's carrot, right? That's what...
Yeah.
Because they're all vegetables.
Yeah, don't use your slave name, Kakarot.
Raditz is radish. Vegeta is vegetable. Kakarot is carrot.
And now they have cauliflower and kale.
Yeah, they're all vegetables.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I've been.
I hate that Toriyama logic is totally on that one, because he did come up with some, they had that, like Piccolo's minions were like Piccolo, drum, like
the
they're
Japanese,
they were all
they love
instruments.
puns.
They were all instruments.
So they write a word that sounds kind of like the thing. They just find puns funny.
I hate this time.
And that just seems true across the board. And unfortunately, because I'm playing Sparking Zero, all I'm doing is reading Dragon Ball manga and watching Dragon Ball on Plex.
So we've established what escapism is. Another prominent literary criticism of The Lord of the Rings at the time it was published, and maybe by some people in modern times, but I feel like this would have been a more common criticism of Tolkien's peers. I think it's something that we see in a different light in modern days, but a lot of reviews at the time was like, it's just escapism.
Good. Yeah.
And Tolkien actually, and C.S. Lewis as well, was one of the first authors to come out and defend escapism, and he did it in a very literal way. He's like, in real life, escaping is considered a positive thing. It means that you're getting away from something that is endangering your life or your freedom and your health.
Your mental health.
So why is escaping considered bad in the literary world?
It's only bad when you only escape and you never deal with the issues, but people deserve a break.
Yeah.
And I can see the idea that maybe some people take it too far.
If you spend 300 hours a week playing World of Warcraft because you can't deal with your family.
Because you can't deal with real life.
Yeah.
If all you do is read fantasy novels because you don't know how to talk to your coworkers, maybe you should see a psychiatrist.
You're just like, oh man, I haven't showered for 5 days because I've just been reading Superman I'm sorry, I don't know why I said Superman. I swear I wasn't talking about you, but I've been reading. I
smell like rotten meat these days.
I just rewatched Skeleton Crew 7 times in a row, and I forgot to shower and take my medicine.
Yeah.
So,
but I think that the extreme of people that do that are. They're the minority, but they're the minority that people see, that they think of, because it's like that's how stereotypes are built.
Yeah, and I think generally, escapism is a very positive thing these days. I mean, the biggest franchises are Star Wars and Marvel, and that's escapism.
Well, we live in a society where I think we're just more focused on that. Where back then, it was considered
you're not manning up.
Kinda, yeah.
It's you've got God and country, and
neither of those are in this book.
Yeah. But they both are.
So you say.
When the troll entered the Hall of Marzabul, what did Frodo say? He said, "For the Shire!"
They read the book and they were like, "This book it was either too Catholic or not Catholic enough."
Okay, themes. We've already touched this on a little bit, but they're books. A book about war that's extremely anti-war.
Yeah, it really doesn't want to deal with war. A lot of its main focus is like, hey, let's try to avoid this giant war that's coming with the Lord of Darkness, because that sounds like it'll suck.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's really bad. And a lot of the focus is about how the world's kind of come to a dark age because the various races of the free people have stopped working together and stopped communicating with each other. The dwarves and the elves long time ago were enemies, but then in the Second Age they were friends. But now they're no longer friends. They don't communicate.
Every time the elves ran into Gimli, I was expecting to learn a new slur. And they never used one, so I was a little disappointed, but at the same time, I'm like, well, what would you call them? Short stack?
Now, I wouldn't say that is an allegory for, the failure of European nations to work together that led to these world wars, but surely that could have been something that was in the back of Tolkien's mind
because it's applicable in any setting. When people stop working together, bad shit happens.
Exactly.
When you're racist to the little dwarf, they don't want to work with you.
Yeah, exactly. You have to wear this blindfold to go to our house. And
I'm gonna do that to the next short person I run into.
I'm sorry, it's
the law.
It's the law. I don't write the law. I've done you a favor by even letting you come to our house.
I promise I'll sing to you the whole way.
Hef, what jumped out at you as a major theme in the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring? Was it rings?
Rings. Rings do come together sometimes.
The rings of truth.
In the darkness bind them, yes. Yeah. The importance of storytelling, I think, is a big thing in these books. Like, everybody's got a story. Like, every person you meet has something to tell you or the person that are involved with you in the book.
And there's various kinds of storytelling, be it just two people meet and it's like, oh, this just happened. Or let me sing you this epic poem. Or it's like, oh, here's a letter. Let me read this letter to you. Like every kind of storytelling that would have been available for that type of technology is like in this book somewhere.
Yeah.
Be it a map or whatever.
Yeah. That was the big thing that jumped out at me. The bond of brotherhood, they're not real fond of it when the Fellowship starts, but you can kind of feel like as they get further into the book, there's a brotherhood that forms, and looking past the differences
that they have,
because they have the focused goal of we need to destroy the ring, and it does build up down that. So,
and
that's the big one.
Who in the Fellowship would you say is the best example of that?
Of overlooking differences
and like becoming like brothers or becoming friends or
in the first book.
Yeah, let's stay in Fellowship. I'm sure you both have read ahead, but we're gonna pretend like you haven't read Two Towers.
Aragorn kind of I think has the best mindset of it, but I mean he is also supposed to be the not exiled exactly, but
he's the last Jedi.
He walked away from it, He's the king. He's still got a kingly mindset. He still has an ideal purpose of, if we don't do this, the world fails. So he has to be able to kind of keep it together. So while Frodo may be like the ring bearer, I think it's Aragorn that really kind of pulls everybody together to be like, we are all together in this for a reason. And
5 points for not taking the easy answer.
What's the easy answer?
Legolas and Gimli.
That's nice.
Oh.
No, I wanted to see if either of you would say something different.
No, that'd also be my answer.
Yeah.
For similar reasons, I wouldn't have phrased it as good as that. I just think he did the best job of like bringing people together and like going, hey, maybe our squabbles aren't the best idea right now, so let's like not do that.
I love every time like they start to argue, and there's one of Gandalf's lines I love. He's like, if we're going to sit here and listen to every grievance that's ever been aired between dwarves and elves, we're going to be here for months. So just like shut up.
I think a decent silver medal might be Sam, but it's just because he's so good natured that he's just like, hey, can't we just all get along and eat potatoes?
Yeah.
I love when Gandalf just yells at people. Yeah. That is very
You fool of a two.
You just stop it.
What are you going to do, Gandalf? Bash your head against this door, Peregrine Took, and save myself from future foolish questions.
Look at the spike and the noise from when riding imitates the part of the book.
They're in Lorien when they're talking about like what they miss about Gandalf. Frodo says, "I miss his short temper."
Yeah. I also really like a lot of the lore dumps in this book.
That song had a dark ending.
And
then he died. Fuck.
Because you get just enough for a taste, but they don't explain every little thing.
There are so many like starts of stories in the Silmarillion that, like, he's like, I'm going to publish this book someday, so I need to just like work this in a little bit. It's like this book is almost like a teaser trailer.
I know I bring this up every time. It just reminds me of Dark Souls. I see the influence. It's like, hey, I'll give you a little bit of lore and you can just fill in the blanks. So I'm like, yeah, that's cool.
That's another thing I picked up a lot in these books is I also played a lot of Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and those games are real big about player delving. And they don't. The cool part about the developers
don't delve too deep.
But the cool part is the developers don't tell you anything about really what's going on.
Yeah, they
you know very little about what's going on. So like all the stuff that's put together is stories that the fans, or in our case, the storytellers, left for us, and we just kind of have to put it together. And that's in a way kind of what these do is you still have to go exploring to find the rest of your answers, which I think is very cool.
Yeah.
Any other themes or any other structure related things you want to bring up before we jump into characters?
It feels like one of the original road trip novels.
I struggle to think of a Tolkien story that doesn't involve traveling.
Yeah.
I can't think of one where they're just like it all takes place in a single city or anything like that. Because there's always a quest. And of course, it's fantasy.
Yeah.
That was true of Arthurian legend and all the mythologies that he was influenced by. It's like, you can't learn anything at home. Get out the door.
Go explore.
It's like Indiana Jones said, if you want to be a good archaeologist, you got to get out of the library.
Yep. All right, so obviously there's a million things that we could spend the entire thing on structuring.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Move on to characters. We're going to start with the Fellowship of the Ring, and of course we're going to start with Frodo, but I also want to hear your guys' thoughts on Bilbo. What do you think of Bilbo in the story, but what also do you think of Frodo as a protagonist as opposed to Bilbo in The Hobbit?
Bilbo in this story, I loved his crack addict energy.
Mm-hmm.
He still felt like the same character, but it also felt like he's been dealing with the Shire for way too long, and he's like, I'm kind of done with these people.
Yeah.
And I loved that. And you get the sense that he's so done with these people because he got the worldly experience that most hobbits don't get, because they're like, we want to stay home and smoke our pipes.
Yeah, he was them.
Yeah.
Until he was essentially forced.
And honestly, I'm just surprised it took him this long.
To just bail?
Yeah.
Probably because he adopted Frodo.
Yeah, because in my head, after having that experience, I would have bailed on the Shire, been like, I'm just going to go on another adventure. Mm-hmm. I'll go find some more dwarves and hang out with them.
He probably would have left sooner if it wouldn't have been for Frodo. Because he left on Frodo's 33rd birthday, and 33 is when hobbits become of age. Yeah. So he essentially left on Frodo's 18th birthday.
Yeah, he's like, you can take care of yourself now.
Yeah.
18, get out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, here's all this gold I left you.
I guess that's true. He left him a lot of
money. And I don't know if this is how it worked in Hobbit law, but essentially that may have been the earliest date that Frodo could have legally been his heir.
Yeah.
And that the Sackville Bagginses wouldn't have had a claim against Bag End.
I do like how butthurt everyone in the Shire is about him. Like, everybody... And
small town politics.
People pretend to hate him or pretend to like him because they're like, oh, we get to go to the private part of the party. Mm-hmm. And then they get mad at like his speech and disappearing. Oh, that was rude. That's basically what they say. They're like, that was rude. We deserve more wine.
Yep.
I like how they went back to drinking wine after he disappeared. Like, well, that can't stop the party.
No.
Yeah, that was cool.
Do you like his snarky gifts? Like the guy who never returns books, he bought him a bookshelf.
That's all great.
Yeah. Left him a bookshelf.
Frodo, I also kind of like, but at the same time, it's like he also just kind of feels like this sounds worse than it is, but like discount Bilbo.
I think he's a more reserved, less adventurous. I think he's kind of like Bilbo with a smaller personality.
Yeah. Bilbo in The Hobbit was way more expressive, so I remember a lot more of him. Where in this one, I'm trying to think of a great character moment for Frodo, and I mean, like, he does stuff, but like, is it comparable to talking to Smaug? Or
I think he has two big character moments in this. The first one is speaking up at the council and saying, I will take the ring to Mordor, but I do not know the way.
Yeah. I need an escort.
And then the second one is at Amon Hen deciding, because he knows he can't go to Gondor. He has to go to Mordor, and he's just been screwing himself, as Sam would say. He's screwing himself up to leave and do it by himself, and him finally deciding.
Yeah, gets in the boat.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going.
Yeah.
I think those are his...
That was his big moment for me, was the boat ride.
Yeah.
The ending.
Sam, I'm going to Mordor. Of course you are. And I'm going with you.
Yeah.
Hef, Frodo, Bilbo, Dildo, Sagan.
I honestly just think that all the other hobbits were more expressive than him for most of the book.
I think I generally agree. Like, Frodo is so much more reserved than the other hobbits are, to the point where I feel like, aside from his major arc of decisions in the book, his personality kind of gets lost.
He's the straight man.
Yeah, I agree.
Where Sam is the bi-curious man.
Now, Bilbo, it's hard because Bilbo is the only hobbit, but Frodo has to share the spotlight with three others. all of which have bigger personalities.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does kind of get lost. But
I like the two getting yelled at all the time.
Yeah, Mary's kind of the worldly one because he's from Buckland. All right, well let's wrap up though. Yeah. I haven't been asking specifically for you guys to compare it to the movie, but it is kind of. I feel like it's kind of a popular opinion to not like Frodo so much in the movies, not because of Elijah. Like it seems to be that most people like Elijah Wood, but aren't crazy about Frodo. What do you guys think of Frodo in the books compared to Frodo in the movies?
I think it's exactly the same.
Yeah, just kind of there. More, like he's a reserved character, and how do you adapt that? He's sitting there and he's observing stuff and he's asking questions and he's getting answers.
Our true hero, Samwise Gamgee.
He's a wholesome good boy.
He is a wholesome good boy.
He loves ponies.
He does love ponies. F.
I don't want to use the word neurotic, but he's a lot more neurotic in the book than he is in the movie.
I think
I'm for that though. I think because like Sam is one of those characters that I think like he's again speaking from the movie, trying not to be one of those people, but that's what I have as experience.
That's fine.
Sam is one of my peak characters in the films.
Same.
Like he's up there as excellent. And I think making him in the book like a little bit awkward, even neurotic kind of at points.
I think he borders on bumbling.
He wants to learn about elves.
That's gonna to me.
He's a giant nerd. I love it.
To me, this has nowhere to go but up because I already know the promise of what he's going to be able to give us in further novels.
I picture him as a tiny little.
And
nerd.
I'm just gonna be sitting there on the edge of my seat, being like, "Let's fucking go!" I'm excited for.
Do you see? So we already know what Sam will become by the end of Return of the King. Do you see any glimpses of that in Fellowship?
Yes. Mostly, it is the caretaker. Nature of which he is over Frodo. That's the same regardless of neuroses or not. He's still very protective of Frodo. Even in when they're going through that first half of the book where they're still kind of running around in the Shire, you still have Sam feeling like Frodo's caretaker, but he doesn't really know how to be it.
He's a nerdy little Alfred.
That's, I think, the biggest difference between book Sam right now and movie Sam is that movie Sam is protective of Frodo, but he's a lot more composed. In the books, he's a lot less composed, but he still has that same drive too.
He honestly reminds me more of Bilbo than Frodo does.
I can see that, yeah.
If remember, Sam spent a large amount of his childhood at Bag End listening to Bilbo's stories while his dad was working as the gardener.
And he's like, I want to go see a dragon. Elves, they sound cool.
Daniel, what are your thoughts on Sam?
Basically the same. He's just this chubby little nerd who likes his friend a whole lot. He's like, oh, my friend's gonna go on an adventure. I'm gonna go with him so I can protect him and make sure his shrubbery is all trimmed up. I picture that's what he thinks it's gonna be at first. And it gets more real as time goes on.
I was expecting one of you to bring this up, and neither of you did. A big reaction that I had to Sam and Frodo, with the first time I read it, was their relationship is really less friends and master and servant.
Oh yeah, it really,
at least to begin with.
Yeah, because he's always calling him Mr. He's very formal with how he addresses him. Again, because he wanted to go with him to trim the shrubbery. He didn't know what he was going to get into.
And when in the first chapter, when the narrator lists out Frodo's friends, Sam is not one of them. Yeah. He's mentioned later.
He's an employee.
He is. Yeah. He's the gardener. And he was.
You saying this, you know what this is making me think, and I kind of feel bad, is Sam's like, I really just want him to be my friend the whole time.
Yep.
And I kind of feel bad for him now.
And this is something that has been brought up a lot, but Sam kind of feels, when you think about all of the members of the Fellowship, 8 of them are either royalty or rich.
Yeah.
And then Sam is kind of the servant that got tagged along.
He's a gardener.
Yeah. But everybody else either is from a rich family or from royalty, if not both, in some way or another. Tolkien has said in many of his writings that Sam the inspiration for Sam was just the average English soldier in World War I. The person who maybe was an accountant or a gardener or a chauffeur back home, but then was thrown into a outrageous situation and had to find their courage.
Here's a trench, buddy.
Yeah.
But it's still allegory.
Yeah.
Mariotic Brandy Book. Mary. And I did not list him and Pippin together, but if it's easier to discuss them together, that's fine.
Actually, not really.
Okay.
Referring to what you were saying, like how Frodo was kind of the, low, whatever like that. If you're talking about a character, I think Brandy would be, Mary, sorry. I think Mary would be the next one that I would say was less of a character.
Yeah, if
like he's not real extraordinary in the book either. He just happens to be like another hobbit that they kind of pick up along the way. I think like the two that struck out to me the most were Sam and Pippin, because Pippin is a lot more social, like vocal in terms of like
he fucks up a lot.
He does, but so he's more noticeable. Whereas Mary and Frodo kind of have a similar vein to me, where Frodo's the straight man. Mary's not exactly the straight man.
But in the couple with him and Pippin, he is.
Right. So, like, to me, that makes it less, like, it's, I think...
Mary bounces off of others more than he does stuff himself.
Mary's, at this point in the books, Mary's fine.
Yeah, fine.
He's not really extraordinary or anything to me, like, at this point in the book.
We'll see if you still think that at the end of Return of the King.
I mean, I assume I won't. But
we'll see. Maybe you will. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you'll just be wrong.
Yeah.
I kind of hope I am.
I think there's a decent chance that you'll think a little bit more of Mr. Brandybuck by the end of the...
I do like the name Brandybuck.
Brandybuck is a good name.
I mean, all of these names are pretty good.
Yeah, they're all pretty good. All right, so Peregrine Took.
Peregrine Took.
I like him fucking up all the time. He's basically the whipping boy of the group at one stage of the book.
He's the Meg.
Yeah. Shut up, Took.
Mushrooms.
I mean, I know I wasn't expecting, because I remembered that one scene from the movie Fool with Took, but that's how I really remember from the movie. Where when I'm sitting here listening to this, I'm like, it's almost like a running gag. Was Tolkien funny? Was he trying to be funny?
I think there is comedy, but it's very subtle.
Yeah. Is this British humor?
I think it's really more his own brand. Like,
it's Jackie Weaver funny.
Yeah.
Because
you have no power here, Peregrine.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to hear updated thoughts on the Four Hobbits by the time we get to the end of the final book.
Yeah.
All right, so here's where our fellowship may break. Hef, what did you think of Gandalf?
He is really mean.
He is mean, but that's awesome.
He's really mean.
He's really mean, but I found it funny.
Yeah.
Unlike The Hobbit, because I read The Hobbit, all of his magical, like, weirdness that, like, I had a problem with in The Hobbit, I didn't have a problem with here. And again, once it was explained to me, that's how the magic works, because again, I'm a literal person sometimes when I'm reading things.
You grew up reading Harry Potter, where you have a wand and you point it at the door and you say the spell and the door unlocks. That is not how Gandalf works.
Yeah. But since I now know that going into the book, that works. Now it's fine. Now I have no problem with it.
I like how frustrated he felt.
That was the next choice. He was mean. Like, he was just... I felt like he was always just this close to being like, I'm going to throw this fucking hobbit something.
He's like the principal of an inner city school that at any moment will just collapse in on itself.
Is he going to say a slur?
He is ready to lose his tenure.
He's like, I swear I have little people as friends.
I'm the only one who knows of Hobbit lore. It's an obscure branch of knowledge.
Yeah, I swear.
So I can say Hobbit
I like
slurs.
the idea that he spent so much time with Bilbo, he realized that I think I only like this one.
You're one of the good ones, Bilbo.
So here's a good time to bring this up. Everybody, like, people who watch the movies and people who have like tertiary knowledge of Lord of the Rings kind of view the Shire as like the idyllic world, like, and in a sense it is, but a lot of the hobbits are real shitty people.
I feel like it would be like living in a gated community with like a homeowners association.
It's a homeowners association. Yeah,
and I'm like, I couldn't deal with
HOA.
it, man.
Mm-hmm.
I would leave my garbage out just to piss someone off.
I
Or
think-
whatever the equivalent for hobbits are in that sense.
The Shire itself,
They just rub their feet on their porch.
Yeah, I'd wear shoes.
the Shire itself is probably a pretty idyllic place to live, but like,
Your neighbors.
yeah, but like some of these hobbits are like, oh, like even like the nice ones like Farmer Maggot are still like, when he leaves the house, his wife says, "Don't get in any arguments with no foreigners now." It's like it's an issue he commonly has. I'm gonna be late for dinner because I got in a fight with an elf.
What you doing here, elf? Best you turn around.
That's exactly what he says to the
Yeah.
ring wraith.
Yeah, he's like, fuck you, get off my property.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick my dogs on you.
You black-robed man.
Some of the hobbits are like, they're isolationist, bordering on xenophobia, bordering on being kind of racist, and it's not just non-hobbits. They
Other
also
hobbits.
it's there's like, oh, those Buckland hobbits, like I don't trust them.
You got that Took blood in you.
Yeah, you got that too. Look, oh, you're from the South Farthing? I don't know about you.
The hobbits are the British.
You have an accent. Yeah.
And if you read like Tolkien's stuff, like his letters, and he's like, oh yeah, I designed the Shire after, or like my country upbringing as a child when I was most happiest. And I'm like, okay, you designed the Shire and hobbits in general like that, but the personalities of these people, are these the people you actually lived with? Like,
Yeah.
we kind of got sidetracked from Gandalf.
I mean, that's all I really have to say on him, is he was mean and it was funny.
Okay.
I did appreciate realizing apparently it's like one of those Mandela effects. Like people think something's one thing, and then like I think most Mandela effects can be disproven, like, or at least like basically like, because most of them are culturally relevant. Yeah. So like the example I think I have is like Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father." He never actually says it.
He says no.
He says, "No, I am your father." Right. But because for years and years and years, people said that. People who never saw the movie thought that was the line. They see the movie for the first time, and they're like, "Oh, that's not the line." And then you'll have other people that have watched the movie once. Several years later, they come back to the movie again. It's like, that's not what he said. That's not what it was. Whenever, like, it's misconstruing, I think, is a lot of it.
And how's that relate to this?
Fuck.
You forgot what he was talking.
I know. Okay, I'm back. So, the line, "You shall not pass," is not in the book.
Right.
It is, "You cannot pass."
Right. Which he does say in the movie.
He does.
He says, "You cannot pass."
But it's not the blow, like, that takes down the Balrog.
He says, "You cannot pass," and that doesn't work, so then he upgrades.
Yeah, to "You shall not pass." That does not happen in the book.
I also have just a horrible martyr complex, so when he stands up to the Balrog and then just tells everyone else to leave. I love that shit.
I love it too.
I'm a sucker for that. I'm like, that's probably one of my favorite parts of the book.
I also think the Balrog just kicks ass because, like, the description of it is like, it's shadow and fire and evil. And you're like, get fucked, idiot.
And I love the lore. It's like, the dwarves wouldn't stop digging, and they found this fucking thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is cool. Like, that's fucking... I'll talk about more, like, about that later.
Let the thing be evil because it's evil. Don't justify it. Just tell me it's evil.
Balrogs are the same level of being as Gandalf, except they were corrupted over to the first Dark Lord. So, essentially, a being that became a Balrog could have eventually became a wizard in Middle-earth. So, they're very evenly matched for a reason. Yeah.
His foe is beyond any of you.
Yeah.
Swords are no good.
Yeah.
Swords are no good here. No, that,
Yeah,
you know.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But no, that seems like, that's
Aragorn and Boromir step up like they're going.
They're like,
no,
yeah,
no, no.
What's that line? I think they said it about the ring wraiths. Like swords don't work on them. All swords perish.
Yeah. All swords disintegrate. It doesn't say disintegrate, but it says something. Yeah.
I think it says perish. Like they just don't. They'll stop working.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that idea of being where like you can't fight your way out of this one.
That's going to come up again in the Return of the King.
Yeah.
All right, Aragorn, son of Arathorn.
Strider. Has there, of the books we've read, has there been a cooler nickname than Strider? Eddie Spaghetti, maybe.
Bitchy Richie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can call me Strider. Oh, you're so cool.
Yeah.
Somebody comes up with
You're so you sit in the back of the bar and watch everyone else with this just all sing scowl. Oh, you're so cool.
At the Council of Elrond, they're like
beep beep Strider, beep beep.
Yeah.
Right.
At the Council of Elrond, they're like Strider, and he's like, a fat man in Bree who sells beer calls me that.
Fun fact, nobody could remember what this guy's name was in the original, like whenever the movies first came out. So like one of those, do you remember Burger King had like those glass like goblets that they had for Lord of the Rings? They made 4 of them. Mm-hmm. The one with Aragorn on it is Strider. Because no one could fucking remember what
I called the character Strider for years because of the Fellowship.
Well, yeah, because I mean, most of it is like, I think even in a good chunk of the book, they still call him Strider.
Yeah, the hobbits continue to call him Strider for a while.
Yeah, it's not until the Council of Elrond they start calling him Aragorn. Mm-hmm. So like, that's his name for a bit.
Yeah.
He's kind of the token badass.
I did not. Not just Aragorn, but like I did not realize that we got so little of Arwen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they really beefed her up for the movies.
Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm. To the point, like she's not even the one who rescues Frodo. No, that's Glorfindel.
Yeah, it's just another elf.
Mm-hmm.
What's up, buddy?
He is not just another elf. That elf has killed a Balrog.
You listen here, you piece of shit.
During the fall of Gondolin, he killed a Balrog. He shoved a sword in its chest and pushed it over a cliff and fell over the cliff with it and died. And his deed was deemed so great, they resurrected him and sent him back to Middle Earth.
No, we can't lose you yet. We just...
He's like, okay, I mean, like, he's
the man discovered the ultimate cheat code.
But, I mean, yeah, it's easy enough to replace him with Arwen and beef her up.
Yeah. But I thought that was interesting.
She has no dialogue. I don't think
she speaks at all.
No,
I don't think so.
Actually, I don't think she speaks at all in any of the books. But
okay, but yeah, like because his whole thing, like he's much more lovelorn in the books than he is in the films. Like, which I kind of appreciate because like it shows like a more, I don't want to say spiritual, but it kind of is. Like Aragorn is like the perfect man of his age, and that's like what he's supposed to be, I believe, because like yes, he's a man, but he's also a little bit more, well, I shouldn't say a little bit more, a lot more enlightened than most men. Like he understands the need for all of the races to get together and band together as one to defeat Sauron.
That's because the blood of Newman were still rage is strong in him.
Yes.
I'm also a sucker for a good love story and some elfocy.
I think there's not like. We don't know much about it. It's just
that's
what I mean.
I
mean, I'm sure it feels great.
He's more lovelorn because when they're in the forest of Lothlorien, like he just has that thing. He's like, this feels.
He just did a Middle Earth Tai Chi or Chai Tea.
I thought he orgasmed in there, where he's just like, oh, elves here. Oh, my woman. Oh, there we go.
That's where he and Arwen met in Lothlorien.
Right.
Yeah.
But like he's so spiritually ascended as far as his lovelorn nature that he can just sit there and be overwhelmed with love just by being around it.
But he's also a poet to the point where Bilbo can't finish his poem without asking Aragorn his opinion. But he's also like this major badass with a sword.
Yeah.
He's basically Tolkien. He writes, he fights badasses, he gets pussy.
I don't know about that.
He gets pussy.
Yeah. I'm sorry, elf pussy.
I'm pretty sure he's a virgin at this point. I don't know. Maybe not. We'll see. I could be wrong.
I picture Tolkien married an elf.
I imagine. I feel like elves are just like those things where, like, yeah. I mean, we can do that when we get to Legolas. I'll wait.
Okay. Anything else on Aragorn? Cinnabar-Thorn?
He's perfect.
King Elsar.
He's perfect, and generally I'd have a problem with that, but in a story like this, it doesn't matter.
He's very... To me, he's like the Middle-earth Steve Rogers.
He's the personification of what men should be.
Sometimes that character archetype bothers me a lot, but then sometimes it works.
Right.
And I think this is one of the times where it works.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Boromir, Captain of the White Tower.
I sure hope he doesn't betray anybody.
I was actually kind of surprised how, in the films, I feel like Boromir is a lot more sinister of a presence.
Yeah, they play it up in the movie.
They play it up a lot more in the films, because this did not even give you a hint of that until it actually happens.
I think the only thing that kind of was alluding to it, at least the only thing
was where he said, "Let's use the ring." That's the only thing
at the council. Yeah,
that's the only thing I could think of.
He wanted to use the ring. He was the only one that kind of brought topics back to, I need to go back to my home because we have a war coming on. Where he's the one that's talking about, he brings up war a lot more than the other characters, because he's having to deal with it.
Gondor is literally on the border with Mordor, and for even though like the war hasn't been raging, there has still been orcs coming out of Mordor this entire time, and Gondor has been the ones dealing with that.
Yeah.
While everybody else is just...
And it kind of reminded me of, like, at least in the book, he's the character that's like, it's all well and good for you guys to rest on your laurels, but I have a real problem that I have to address. Like, you can get on your soapbox and tell me about how using the ring is wrong, but I need a solution. It's kind of the vibe he gave off.
I think that him wanting to use the ring from his perspective makes complete sense. But
which is also what the ring wanted.
Yeah. But
so it all ties together.
And at the same time, he's like, Elrond says, none of us can wield this. It has to be destroyed.
It's also the easy answer.
Yeah.
Which the book is very much, the easy answer isn't always the best answer.
I think it's one of the explicit themes of the book is you need to choose the harder path in basically every instance.
Yeah.
And that's what Frodo says. He says, I know I can't go to Gondor because that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I know I have to go to Mordor.
Yeah. Boromir is one of the few things I think in the books that I can say that I do prefer the movie version. I think Sean Bean has, with that role in that film, that hits so much harder at the end to me.
And then I also get to see him Game of Thrones.
So much harder than what?
Than what the book version is. Like, Boromir as a character was just kind of there for the book to me. So, like, again, you don't have, like, in the movies where he's a little bit more sinister. You're starting to see him fall to the influence of the ring, and that makes it way more heartbreaking when he does redeem himself by saving or trying to save the hobbits before he dies.
When does that happen?
In the film?
That doesn't happen in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Boromir dying?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That does not happen in this book.
It happens in the movie, not in the book.
Fuck me.
It happens at the beginning of the second book.
Oh.
Spoilers!
It makes sense for the movie to end at that point, with that dramatic point.
Is that the bridge?
Yeah.
Oh.
That is in 2 Towers.
Fuck.
Weird.
I'm 2 hours into that.
That's how Ryan tested me to see if I actually read the book. I was like, what did you think of the Boromir scene? I was like, yeah, I was like, the movie's different.
The movie's different. Oh, this is why.
We'll talk about that in the 2 Towers episode.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, whatever.
It's okay. I was hoping one of you would fall into my trap.
I didn't even,
Giving him
I
a
didn't
trap
even,
card.
I didn't know there was like. I'm even sitting here just being like,
That level of genjutsu doesn't work on me.
yeah.
He tries to take the ring from Frodo at the end of Fellowship. He dies saving Merry and Pippin at the beginning of Two Towers. Both happen at the end of the Fellowship movie.
Okay, all right, you're right. I remember that now.
So we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah. Those fucking. That was that week. Like when I was at home all week, I probably spent. I'd work, and then like I actually had the books playing in the background, and at one point, I guess I wasn't paying attention to like when it does that.
When it goes from one to the next.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I 14 hours of my work week was those 2 books.
No, I listened. Yesterday when I started listening, I was in Brie. So I started this book on Sunday. I basically listened to it my entire workday yesterday and today. Okay.
Fair enough.
All right, let's keep going.
False memory.
Yeah.
Gimli, son of Gloin.
I love Gimli.
I love how racist everyone was to him.
Man, they really didn't like him.
He's kind of racist too, though.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he's the one dwarf with them versus walking into like a neighborhood of elves, and then all the elves are like,
He's Mike Hanlon.
yeah.
I think Gimli is where Tolkien's very subtle comedy comes in best. He doesn't have a lot of like comedic relief, but there are some very like small jokes. To me, there's one particular portion of this book with Gimli that stands out. So I'm going to ask you both, what's your favorite part of this book that involves Gimli?
Him getting blindfolded.
I would also say that. Like that was the scene that stood out to me. Especially like when you get to like after Galadriel? Yes.
Galadriel.
After Galadriel says like basically quit being mean to the dwarf.
I do like how he kind of simps for. He's like, you know what, I really want.
That was
nobody
kind of,
there.
that was my thing. Where he's after that, he's just like he's been like he got like kind of fluffed.
Like,
up.
what's the modern version of that? Hey, just give me some feet pics, I'll be okay.
he definitely miladies her after that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was
No, that's my favorite part. Now him asking for the hair.
That's pretty.
That's
good.
my favorite part.
Yeah, him simping. I loved it. That was actually pretty funny. Maybe unintentionally so, but I was like, because I'm putting like modern connotations onto it.
It is funny because like you could totally read that one of two ways. Like you could either read it as
classic romanticization.
He's being romanticized.
I can
and
show
he's just
this
like,
to my
now he's eternally faithful to her, and then you can read it your way, where it's just like, oh no,
Feet
he's just
pics.
And even like, is it even romantic love, or is it just
No, I mean romantic in like the literary sense.
like the capital R?
Yeah.
But you could read it both ways.
You could read it both ways.
That's what makes that.
But
scene
I
really
do
good,
I do
think.
like superimposing my simping nature onto him in that scene, because when I was listening to that, I'm like, oh my man, he's so brave.
Nobody has ever made an offer of me so bold yet so polite.
Yeah, it's so great. He saw Frodo get the bathwater and he just got all jealous.
I like the idea that they're looking into the mirror, like the mirror pool down there, and he's all there just. I see what I see.
What's your
I see a Celeborn dead.
What's your heart's desire, Gimli? Feet.
They have to put him on a box so that he can look at it, though.
That's all he can see is her ankles. That's as far up as he goes.
That's what the hyper focus
That's
is.
what I want in my Lord of the Rings remake. Is Gimli the simp.
I mean, that's in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I want more of it, even more exaggerated.
I must offer 3 hairs upon her golden head. Okay, all right.
Sorry.
Legolas Greenleaf, Prince of the Woodland Realm.
He's eyed. He didn't slay a Balrog, though.
He shot a fell beast out of the sky in pitch blackness.
Is that a Balrog?
No.
After you told me the Balrog story, now I'm comparing all elves to that dude.
Okay.
All the elves were very interesting.
Yeah, they all had a lot of lore.
Yeah, well, and they're also like very, what's the word? Fickle, kind of.
Yeah.
Fickle.
Like they kind of just float there. They're like
so that
flighty, maybe.
Flighty. That's it. Yeah.
Well, they live so long, they're like, I'll blink and you'll be dead.
The phrase that's used in the book is when this is Frodo describing Galadriel when they're having the farewell feast. Present but remote.
Yeah.
Is the phrase he uses to describe her.
There's a... God, I hate that I compare everything to fucking anime. I'm too much of a weeb. But there's a new elf in anime that's really popular, and the running joke is she blinks and everyone she knows is dead. Because that's just how she experiences time. Like, she's like, oh, I'm going to go off to do something, but she's gone for 10,000 years. And she's like, oh, that dude who was really into me is gone. Uh-oh.
Galadriel was literally alive before the first age of Middle-earth.
Yeah.
I think what gets me on the elves is they sing a lot more than I would have expected them to.
Yeah.
Like they have, I don't know. I'm used.
I expected them to sing because they sang a lot in The Hobbit.
They're lore masters.
Yeah,
and they convey their lore through poetry and song.
It's interesting, the cultural parallel we have between this and then what we have been known as the Jackson, elven people, because they're all real high, noble, very prim.
I love that there was a drunk elf in the Hobbit.
And then you go into the books and it's just actually these guys are just kind of existing in the moment.
They're still high and prim and very etiquette.
Yeah,
but poetry and singing is a part of that.
But not.
And they also get drunk.
The other thing is in the films they don't really show you a lot of the lesser elves. Whereas in these, you do see the lesser elves, and they're just kind of we just really want to be naked in the woods, and that's our whole day.
You get a little bit of it in the Hobbit movies, because you see in the woodland realm, you see the prison guards getting drunk and falling asleep, so Bilbo can sneak them out of their prisons. So you see a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But Legolas was a good example of kind of that, where I feel he was present, but there is actually a good phrase for what I thought Legolas was in this book. He was just kind of there. He was always there, but not really remarkable as far as anything else. I didn't realize his name was Greenleaf. That's funny.
Bill the Pony.
Fucking god tier character. Did he make it back?
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
I gotta know.
That's why you keep reading.
Keep reading. We found out what happened to all Mary's ponies. Maybe we'll find out about Bill too.
Oh, Bill.
Fucking Bill Fernie.
I love that they made him.
He dies.
Waste of a good apple.
He dies fighting a Balrog and comes back as Law the Pony.
You know you're pretty decent when, in the Magic the Gathering universe, they still felt the need to make a card for you, and Bill the Pony has a card.
Yeah, I have that in my wallpapers.
It's actually a good painting, I think, if I recall.
Oh yeah, it's right there.
Wonder what his cutie mark is.
Galadriel's feet.
It's too.
What a noble steed!
Look at him, he's great.
I was gonna say it's Sam's pan, and Sam's pans are actually hanging off of him.
Look at those apples he's carrying so precariously
Waste
on his
of
back.
a good apple.
God, I love this thing. I would die for this pony.
Sam had to choose between Bill and Frodo, and he chose Frodo.
Yeah, he chose to be Alfred.
Did he choose wrong?
I'll tell you at the end of the series.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Are there any other characters you guys?
I brought up Arwen already.
I think we talked about. Maybe we didn't talk about Galadriel, how we should have, but we did talk about her. I kind of liked her.
Oh, I liked her. Yeah,
I love Galadriel.
She was, that entire sequence was, again, if I was ranking, it would probably be my number 2 spot. I really kind of like the Balrog scene a lot.
Mm-hmm. Those are both.
Yeah. Galadriel's real ominous. I like that about her. She was very much like a creature of mystery.
Sometimes Gandalf does feel like this otherworldly, but other times he kind of just feels like an old man.
Mm-hmm.
She felt like something that was almost hard to understand, trying to communicate with people.
Very ethereal.
Yeah.
One of the oldest and most powerful beings in Middle-earth.
Yeah, and I'm just like, nah, that's kind of cool. I like shit like that, and Tolkien writes it very well, so it feels very real.
And that whole scene felt very surreal. It was like as far as like high fantasy writing, like that, if you're talking like throughout the whole book, if you were asking me what's the most high fantasy point of the book, I would say the scene with Galadriel, just because I liked how Sam was there. I didn't like know that he was there with Frodo in the book when that was happening. But even like you can even just kind of feel like this very misty, almost dark forest atmosphere when he's looking into the mirror, and it's very creepy but very atmospheric, and I very much like that scene.
When she was interacting with people, I believe my notes read something like she was a god recognizing the importance of ants.
Because I mean, that's kind of how elves feel.
Yeah, but she's the one that really kind of sold that feeling for me.
Mm-hmm.
Was like
everything matters.
Like this tiny little thing that she knows she's really far above, but they have this thing that has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I mean, that's not easy to write,
mm-hmm.
but the point got across to me, so I really enjoyed that. Yeah. I don't have much to say about Elrond or.
Arwen, yeah. My biggest comment about Arwen was that she wasn't there.
Yeah, she's really not at all. Okay, there is some stuff to talk about with Arwen, but I think that's going to be more of a Return of the King conversation. Okay, so let's get into some bad guys. I could geek out about Elrond for a long time, but yeah, we gotta be done at some point. So let's get into the enemies, and we'll start off with Sauron, the Necromancer, the Lord of the Rings.
I'm glad he didn't show up.
I like the way. I mean, I also am glad he didn't show up. I like the way he's written as like this, kind of like Galadriel. He feels like this thing that's so other to the dudes that are in charge of making sure he doesn't get what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
That he's so separate from what's going on, but still involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to describe, but you can feel that presence there, but you don't need him to be there exactly.
He's less of a character and more of a presence.
Yeah.
The presence is a really good word, because I think that's exactly what Sauron is.
I like a lot of the lore we get for him, too. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite quotes in the book was about him was, nothing evil starts that way. Mm-hmm. Even Sauron was something.
He was a mire of Owly, and Owly is the essentially like the Hephaestus of the he's the one who creates the dwarves, and Sauron was one of his followers before he got seduced by Morgoth.
And it's just, I mean, there's not a lot you can really say about him other than like the lore dumps you get, and that you can feel his presence.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it works for the book, so.
The way they do that the best, I think, is actually through Saruman.
Yeah.
Mainly, since we're going to him.
Saruman of many colors?
Yeah. Well, because, like, Saruman is like...
Do you like my rainbow robes? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm imagining that as Christopher Lee, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Peter, where are my rainbow robes? I told you, Christopher, we're not doing that.
He does it, but he does it in the Saruman voice, so it's just like, where?
I wanted to play Gandalf, and you said no. And now, fine, I'll be Saruman, but now I can't even have my rainbow robes.
These clothes are drab.
I think one of the biggest things of whiplash for me compared to the books in the movie was, in the book, Gandalf pretty much just shows them and goes, hey, guess what this dick did to me? And he tells them the story, where, like, you're kind of experiencing it
through Gandalf, as Gandalf does, yeah.
And in parallel to what the others are doing at the time.
Yeah, because
that's how the movies are,
yeah.
The movies are cut. So that was one of the biggest, like, this is how Tolkien tells the story as opposed to how the movie tells the story. Like, oh, okay. But I just pictured Gandalf coming up, being all pissy, going, "This motherfucker
locked me on the top of his tower.
Wouldn't even help me with my quest."
Yeah,
he's a bad guy now.
He's a bad guy, and his robes change colors.
You wouldn't believe what he did to me whenever I said that was violet and not indigo. Saruman, as good as. Because he's like the high the highest wizard, right? Like he's who
He's the lead.
answer to.
He's the leader of the Order of Wizards, and he's the leader of the White Council.
Yeah. So Saruman to me feels like a really good, like, now it's officially us against the world kind of thing, because you have essentially two of the highest beings relatively in existence right now in Middle Earth, and they have allied together. So it's literally us and our merry band of people literally against the world. And I think that's where Sauron's dominance really is more illustrated as a presence, because Saruman we can physically see, and even he's still kowtowing to whatever this presence is, which I think makes it much more omnipotent of a power, which I think works out very well.
Cool.
I don't really have a cool to say.
The Nazgul.
Ring
race.
I mean, they're
the Black Riders.
Cool as fuck.
Yeah, they're cool. I don't know what to say about them character-wise, but they're like...
So they're kind of like... So Sauron is a presence, more a presence and less a character, and his physical representatives in the story are the Nazgul, and even the Nazgul aren't even really physically there. They're more spiritual beings who have to wear black robes in order to be seen by other people.
Yeah, they're like, we have to wear this. Please stop calling us slurs. Hobbits. The
hobbits are like, can the Black Riders see? And Aragorn's like, their horses can see.
And I love shit like that, because it's like, that's so creepy. Like, that's such a creepy response.
All the dogs that have seen them go barking off and running away. Just like, yes, but these horses were reared in Mordor.
They were once kings that desired power. Well, how much power?
You see it.
Like, I mean,
they got exactly what they wanted.
Yep. Oh yeah, and there's another, like, we didn't even touch on the very obvious theme of greed and corruption and people who dig too deep or who delve too deep. Or
I mean, that's why I love the whole Morgan thing so much, is the digging too deep, and then you find basically Cthulhu at the bottom of this thing.
They did not. They didn't put caution before audacity.
Yeah, they were like, no, there's probably treasure down here.
Yeah. They already had so much. They already had enough, but it wasn't enough. Okay, and then I also had Gollum and Tom Bombadil here. So I definitely want your guys' thoughts on Tom Bombadil, but let's talk about Gollum first.
I like his crack addict energy.
He's not present in this story much, but he is talked about constantly.
Yeah,
I like when they talk about his interrogations, and they're like, I didn't even want to touch him. Have you ever smelled him?
He smells so bad.
Whenever like he's in the woods and like he's like there when he's pursuing, and like Frodo sees him just for a minute, and then whoever the elf is, that like he's like I thought it was something, but it was so fast.
Haldir.
Yeah. It was so fast.
We didn't shoot because we didn't know if it was good or bad.
We didn't know what it was.
Listen, you should have been able to take one look. That smells evil.
Mm-hmm. They would have been in more contact even with the woodland realm. They'd know. I mean, talk to your other elves.
Funny thing was, like, after that scene, I just imagined that elf as Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy after that, because it's just like, nothing gets past me. I'm so fast. Oh, what's that?
Oh, Drax. Stand so still that you cannot see me.
God bless you, Dave Bautista.
Okay. Tom Bombadil. Finally, you've heard about him for years and years, and now...
My God.
What the fuck?
I love that this dude, who I am interpreting as basically Jesus, is so far above everything going on around him that he sees the One Ring, picks it up and goes, that's neat. Not tempted, doesn't give a fuck. He just wants to bank his hot, thick wife and sing some songs.
I mean, you have like an idyllic forest that's your world, and you live there. It's basically just you and your wife and like the animals.
And so I'm sitting there, right? And I can't remember if it was in this book or the next one, so forgive me. But there's another quote where people are talking about if the war happens. They're like, Tom Bombadil would probably fall last.
It's in Fellowship. They're talking about it in the Council of Elrond.
Okay.
Because they like What if we just gave him the ring?
Yeah, but he's too unreliable because he's real.
Yeah, he'd drop it.
He'd lose it.
This is not his concern.
And he'd probably fall last in this great war.
Yeah,
and even though he's so badass that like he's gonna like outlast Galadriel. So I'm sitting there going, what's he gonna do? Because it makes you think like, what if he fought a Balrog? He'd probably be like, oh, that thing's cool, and just walk away.
He would sing.
He'd push it. He's like, my thick wife is this way.
Tom Bombadil, Tom Bombadillo. His jacket is dark blue and his boots are yellow.
And I kind of just like the idea of something so powerful that, I keep talking about like the otherworldly nature shit, but either so powerful or just so far removed from the rest of the going on. He's just like, that's neat, and moves on with his life.
Yeah. Can you just come to us with Brie so we can just drink for one more night? No goldberries waiting.
Tom Bombadil.
I got shit to do and bitches to fuck.
Tom Bombadil is Randall Flagg done correctly.
Yeah. He's good Randall Flagg.
And his boots are yellow.
Yeah. I don't know what else you say about this dude other than he's an example of like dropping some sort of piece of lore that you don't fucking have to explain, but it's kind of neat.
There's lots of that in here.
Yeah.
Like the Watcher in the water.
Yeah. I think he's the best example, though. Okay, He stands out.
Yeah.
You read this and you remember Tom Bombadil so well. Because I'm sitting there going,
what
is this? Who is that? What's he doing? What are his powers?
Yeah, and they don't need to tell you. They're just like, he's that badass.
Yeah. Tolkien doesn't believe in allegory, but he thought to himself, but what if those mushrooms weren't mushrooms?
he's that guy, just trust me.
Apparently he hangs out with Farmer Maggot at some point.
Are we allowed to say maggot?
Yes.
I would say Goldberry is the horniest this book got.
I don't... Galadriel. No, both of those are pretty sippy.
They're pretty thirsty.
Yeah. Drink from the river.
I'd rather drink from the river, daughter.
Both. Great.
She's literally the number one prize of berries. She's a gold berry.
Yeah. What about the iridium berry?
That's when you win the Olympics.
I really like that he was just like, Tree, just let him go. Come on. What are you guys doing? Come on, stop that. That's funny.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
Scary shit. Is this book scary?
I think some of the implications could be scary. Like, I think the idea that you dig so deep that you find an abomination, like that idea is scary. Is the execution going to give me nightmares? No.
What do you think?
In terms of like scary, no, but like I would say the book can at times feel oppressive for two reasons. One is
I want you to give me 3 reasons.
3? Okay. Well, one I can give you is Tolkien does a good job of like making the world seem very dark. Like there's a lot of lighthearted things happening, but the overall presence that Sauron has does really make it feel like it's a grim situation, and it's very much, our boys against the world, and they're just doing their best. So, as far as I'm not gonna say it's a dour book, but it definitely has, I would say, like dour atmospheres in time. And the Galadriel scene is a really good example of it too, because like that scene just feels dark. So, I would say, kind of a little bit of an oppressive tone. The second one is really more my own fault, and that's more because this is you were correct whenever you said it's dense. This is an intimidating book to pick up because there's a lot of stuff happening, and it's not really an everything's important thing, but it does, but something's happening at all times.
Yeah.
And if you're not paying attention the whole time you're going through, you will either forget something or you will miss something that will come back and be brought up later, and especially as lore-driven as all this is. And the third thing that is very scary would have to be probably the Nazguls. Those are just creepy things.
The idea of fighting one, yeah, I'm like...
Well, you can't fight one.
Yeah,
That's the scary part. He left a note.
No, somebody did. Oh, it's a song. So I won't sing it. I think Gollum is kind of scary.
Yeah.
The scene where Frodo wakes up when they're in the tree the first night they spend in Lorien, and he wakes up and Gollum's like climbing up the tree.
Well, you just sees little orbs of his eyes.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
That could be alarming.
And when Sam like thinks he sees it, he's in the boat and he thinks he sees like Gollum's eyes peeking out over that log. That's kind of spooky. Give me nightmares? No, but I do think it's creepy.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Or if your uncle, you inherit something from your uncle that's worth a whole bunch of money and he doesn't tell you, and you're just like, shit, that thing's like holding up my TV tray.
I thought you were going to say if you wake up and your uncle's just sitting there staring at you. I was like, how dark's Ryan going to get?
Charm my uncle raped me.
Why do you think he left him everything?
Ow, my ribs.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Power of Christ compels you. I'm just going to read a quote. And this is that Frodo and Gandalf talking about Bilbo finding the ring.
Yeah.
Behind that, there was something else at work, beyond any design of the ring maker, Sauron. I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and not by its maker, Sauron. In which case, you are also meant to have it, and that may be an encouraging thought. Tolkien was a very devout Catholic. And what are some ways that you see that, or don't see it?
If we're taking that quote specifically, it's saying God made the world for the people, not himself. And thus the people are what make the difference in the world, not necessarily God.
I kind of took this quote as more of a destiny, so when they're talking about the ring, they're often talking about Sauron's machinations and the ring's influence, because the ring makes things happen. The ring's maybe sentient and does things, and when Gandalf's talking about how the ring decided it was time to leave Gollum, but Bilbo didn't pick up the ring because of the ring's influence or the ring's power. There was another power there, and that was God's power. Because Bilbo was meant to have the ring through God. It was his destiny, because from Bilbo, it would come to Frodo, and it was Frodo's destiny to destroy the ring. What are some other things you see in this book that are Christian-y, religious-y, faithy?
Very, very good and evil binaries.
Most of the characters are very black and white, but not all of them.
Yeah, I would just say that it was like a 90-10 split.
I mean, you have your Boromir.
Yeah.
You have your Gollum.
And those are people who got corrupted by temptation. Mm-hmm. That's very Catholic-y.
We have a better discussion on that in Two Towers and Return of the King, where we actually get Gollum as a character with dialogue and
and you got shit like the Balrog. It's a fucking demon.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I don't know how else you would describe it.
Well, and Gandalf is a Maiar, and it's not a direct one-for-one, but you can explain Maiar as angels.
Yeah, that's usually the shorthand.
Yeah, that people use. It's a battle between an angel and a demon. And
this is where Tolkien is not using one-to-one, but if you're trying to shorten it for people to understand real quick, it's a demon versus an angel.
Yeah,
that's what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And the demon was an angel, but became corrupted by another fallen angel and became a demon.
And he took inspiration from these things, but didn't do, again, exact one-to-ones.
Yeah, because the religion of Middle-earth is monotheistic and polytheistic, so there's influence from Christianity, and there's also influence from pagan religions like Norse mythology, and
He wrestles.
Yeah. Yeah, he does wrestle. He wrestles Morgoth and wraps him up in a golden rope and drags him back to Valinor. Ugh, Tolkas. Okay. All right, well, let's keep going. Let's start to wind down.
Oh my God! Are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Kings and Koontz. Ryan. All right,
What is your king, Ryan?
It's the lore. It's the world building. It's the Silmarillion hints and quips and also the Fellowship. Both the capital F Fellowship, the characters that make up the Fellowship, but also the little F Fellowship, the relationships of these characters that they build. And Daniel, what's your king?
Gimli simping because I finally saw myself in the book.
Yay! Yay! You don't see yourself as Pippin, just like fucking up all the. I see myself as Pippin a lot.
I mean, I could also see that, but if I was Pippin, I would have asked for some hair.
My king is Aragorn's helmet in this picture. No kidding. My God, that looks just so wild.
I think it's a feather. Or feathers.
I thought it was a donut, but I'm also blind.
My king for this book is probably the scene in Lothlorien with Galadriel, because of all the things that felt like truly like I was immersed in the fantasy, that's the scene that I think got me the most. Like that whole scene just feels so ethereal and just actually encapsulating and like the mysticism of all the elves. I think it's far and away the most impressive part of the fantasy in the book.
One of my all-time favorite quotes from the Lord of the Rings is, I have passed the test. I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel. And there's this great Simpsons quote where just like, I forget what the exact circumstance is, but comic book guy passes some kind of test and just completely out of nowhere he says, I have passed the test. I will diminish and go into the west and remain comic book guy. It's just like, I don't have Koontz. Fuck you. Daniel, what's your Koontz?
The singing.
Yeah. You suck. Sings great. Hef?
My Koontz was apparently confusing where the book actually ended. Oh, I hate false memories.
I mean, if you ran them together and you like, that's how the movie ends, so you expect that to be how the book ends. So, Rankings, Daniel is first.
Find The Hobbit for me. Where did I
place number 11.
I think overall I still really enjoyed The Hobbit more. I think I'm gonna put it right. There ain't no way I'm putting it below Phantoms. Yeah, there's fine.
Okay. So
one of these days I might move Rango.
It's your new number 12, below The Hobbit and above Firestarter.
Because the more times I read Ring, the more I like it. So
the little girl who plays Charlie McGee in the new Firestarter movie is in the new Star Wars show, Skeleton Crew. She's really good.
Oh.
And her name is Ryan.
I think it's number 6. Because I liked it more than The Hobbit. I don't know, like, right, 4, 5, and 6 right there, if you ask me on a different day, they would probably flop around.
Yeah.
Because it really just depends.
I mean, those 3 of the most lauded novels of...
Yeah.
At least in genre fiction.
In a different day, I could probably tell you differently, but that seems good.
So number 6, under Dracula, above The Hobbit, and number 4 was Frankenstein, so it's Frankenstein, Dracula, Fellowship is what he was talking about. I'm going to cheat a little bit. So I've always said that I like The Hobbit more than The Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. And I will admit, part of it is definitely nostalgia. This read on Fellowship, I was kind of thinking, maybe I do like Lord of the Rings more. So I'm actually going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to tie it at number 1 with The Hobbit, but I will, but when we do Return of the King, I will definitively rank one higher than the other. Like, let me read all 3 again.
I think what we need to do is you need to tie them all and then finally rank them at the end of the journey.
That's what I'm going to do.
I like it. I like that idea for you.
Yeah. It's going to be hard, but
then we'll see the real Return of the King.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hello, Mr. Stein.
Hello, Mr. Black.
Who's that?
He's the new drama teacher.
Zombie Day. There are so many references to the Summer Run. I'm just not going to explain all these, but I'm just going to shout some of them out for the people out there. The Lay of Lathian with Baron and Luthien. Sauron's werewolf dungeon is mentioned, but it's just called Sauron's dungeon that Baron is rescued from. It was actually his dungeon on Werewolf Island, where all these... Okay, I'm going to explain this one. But all these elves plus Baron were kept there, and once every night, Sauron would send the werewolves out to pull out an elf, and the werewolves would eat the elf right outside the dungeon and make the others listen to it. That's mentioned. It's not... It's just...
I think they should just make a movie called Werewolf Island, and it's a surprise Lord of the Rings movie.
Yes. Elbereth / Vardashi is mentioned so many times. Gil-galad and Elendil, obviously Isildur and Anarion are mentioned. The Silmarillions, Westerness / Númenor. There's just countless. Turin, Turambar, Eärendil, Dior. Just so many references to the Silmarillion. It's not even funny. Okay.
Ryan, which one of those references is your favorite?
Aragorn singing the Lay of Lathian to the hobbits, because Baron and Luthien is my favorite Silmarillion story.
Okay.
Homework. I'm going to ask the question, and I'd also like to get your guys' thoughts on the fact that there are actually 5 hobbits, but kind of 6. But what do you think would happen to Fatty Bulger if he actually decided to go on the quest with Frodo and the rest of them?
They would have run out of Lammas bread a lot sooner.
So you think he would have made it all the way to Lorien?
I think he would have gotten I think
he would have eaten Bill the Pony.
I think we wouldn't have had as many problems with Gollum, because Fatty Bulger would have taken his place. He'd have been like, no, I don't like that. Fatty Bulger is actually the unsung hero of the story. We just don't know it.
I don't even really remember this dude.
He was the 5th Hobbit who stayed behind at Kirk Hollow to pretend he was Frodo, and he got attacked by the Nazgul.
By the Ringy Wraiths.
Yeah, by the Ringy Wraiths.
Okay.
His name is Fatty.
I think that if he would have gone with them, and that was actually in the book, people would be making "pass me a fatty" jokes more often.
You guys remember what when at the first feast in Rivendell, when Frodo was talking to Glóin and he was telling him about what happened to all the other dwarves? Do you remember what he said? His update on what's going on with Bombur? That he's so fat that he couldn't get from his bed to his couch now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Further reading. I'm actually on my 3rd Tolkien biography. And so far the best one I've read is Tolkien and the Great War, The Threshold of Middle-earth by John Garth. So I'm going to recommend that. Also, The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, which is a series of poems written by j.r.r. Tolkien about Tom Bombadil and Goldberry and Old Man Willow and the Barrow Rights. Barrow Rights also appear in there.
I've been told that if you enjoy Tolkien, you should check out the works of Brandon Sanderson, because apparently he's real big into fantasy and world building, stuff like that.
I've never read any of his stuff, because I just keep rereading Tolkien again and again.
I've seen a couple things that, like, if you're talking about like a living person that does fantasy to a grand scope, that is not I wouldn't say, I haven't been told they're on Tolkien's level, but if you're talking like today's modern day kind of thing, you're probably looking for Sanderson.
You hurt George R. Martin's feelings.
You're
just like, so?
Good.
That one, man, we got enough negative comments on that one YouTube video we posted.
Yeah, we got like 3 people who were mad.
About what?
Yeah, but that was the only 3 people that commented. Yeah. That was that one when we went on that tangent about during the Eyes of the Dragon where we were talking about how j.r.r. Martin sucks because he doesn't like his fans at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like most of the comments I think if we had any, I think there were like 2 or 3 and they were like negative because apparently we don't know anything. I think one was an actually. Like somebody was like, "Oh, I'm actually this," and I think he just responded with "Thanks."
I think it's it might be our most viewed video. It's one of our most viewed videos. It's our 4th most viewed video with 1,700. That's 17 comments.
Jesus Christ.
That's more than the last time I looked. Yeah, this was just our tangent we went on during that.
I'll send it to you so you can re-listen to it.
And
Comments.
I remember being very unapologetic in my statements.
There is an unspoken contract between the author and the readers. We will buy the books before the series is complete, and your priority is completing the series.
Oh, that's a good comment. Yeah.
Thanks, James. I was like, I've made enough money. I'm not gonna make any more.
Wait, scroll down. There was one in there.
It's one of the reasons I.
One of them is like an unactually. Like, keep going. That was it. Game of Thrones was 96 because I made the comment of like I thought it was like 81 or something like that, and he's like Game of Thrones was 96.
Okay.
That was the actually.
We don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of when all books are dated when we're talking about this off the cuff.
There it is. If you've never seen the show, never read any of the books, why are you a part of the conversation at all? Which is funny because it was yeah, you're right, it was a tangent. But the funny part about it was we just didn't mention that in the skit.
I think there's a point where I interjected and said, "I've never read a book. I've never seen a show."
Oh yeah, but it was him and me bitching. So I mean,
yeah,
that was
I think this comment is directed at me.
That's funny.
Yeah.
No, you can still have an opinion based off of the information we give you. It's just that your opinion is contextualized. That is coming from our opinion.
I would, as somebody who's never read or watched Game of Thrones, I would never make a Game of Thrones piece of content. It's just happened to be that we were talking about Game of Thrones in a Stephen King piece of content.
Well, what's funny in that too is like I remember like in that thing, like you even made it a point of saying I've never seen enough, so I could have a very different opinion if I had seen it.
I would recommend.
And then that dickbag right there is just being like, "Why are you even talking about it?" It's just like, dude, it's a preface. Calm the fuck down.
I would actually recommend if you like these books to read Game of Thrones, but don't give j.r.r. Martin money. Borrow the book from a friend.
Get it from the library.
Get it from the library. Do literally anything else, because I am still not very pleased with the way that he has treated the series himself.
I'm not paying for any more ticket money for live action remakes of animated films. Except I will do it. I will do it for Snow White for Drake.
You would do it for your child.
Yeah, but and you're not giving j.r.r. Martin any more money, so
it's like I don't know what to tell people. I want the series to be finished. I don't need another spin-off novel.
Okay. I still pay for Disney Plus every month because even though I have all the Star Wars stuff on Blu-ray, because I want to throw money at it. I want to vote with my dollars. And I own one piece of Disney stock for that same reason. Okay, all right. So we're spending less time reading stuff for the podcast. What else have you guys been reading recently?
Manga.
Oh.
I've been reading the Dan to Dan manga because the anime first season only covers like the first 2.5 volumes.
If you write a manga about yourself, you can't just be like, "Oh yeah, I'm reading this movie about Dan to Dan or writing this manga."
It's not even subtle, man. Your name's in it twice.
It's like 3 times. Dan to Dan to
Dan. I guess it's 2.5.
I haven't been this confused since Bobo.
It's a sequel. It's probably the only other anime that comes close to Bobobo that's that unapologetically Japanese.
Bobo.
And I've been reading the Dragon Ball Super manga, and I'm sort of embarrassed by that one, but I want content.
It's fair.
Yeah.
We all hyperfixate.
Yeah.
I still have to watch all the Indiana Jones films when I start the first one, so...
You have to
And
watch.
that-
You have
that
to watch
fourth-
Digimon start to finish.
And that fourth one's kind of tough.
If you quit smoking, like fully quit, and we'll come up with like okay, if you've been off cigarettes for X amount of time, and then I will rewatch Yu-Gi-Oh and make a short reaction video for each episode.
I like that.
I like if you I don't know, it's 6 months. Like if you quit smoking and you don't have a cigarette for 6 months.
All right.
I'll watch it. All the Yu-Gi-Oh, not with Yugi. I'm not watching the 5Ds and all that shit.
Yeah. No G.
I'll watch those.
I will make a reaction. Like, Mai's boobs are. Oh god, she's like 13.
But how old was she when you started watching the show?
13.
Okay, so just speak as your 13-year-old self.
What's funny is actually I think the way I read because I did a deep dive because I also had this problem because Yugi and the kids are they're like 15.
Mm-hmm. They're high school,
and she's 18.
Okay.
Aha!
Yeah, because she's already doing shit outside of that. So it's actually creepy that she's into Joey.
Legal, but still creepy.
Right.
And in Japan, I don't think that's not so much a big deal in Japan.
It's just,
you're defending a pedophile.
I'm robbing.
Have you read Rurouni Kenshin?
They say she's robbing the cradle. I think she's robbing the grave.
Okay. All right. Upcoming on the Horror of Babylon, we have in the next couple weeks we're going to be dropping an episode on the Dark Tower movie, which will wrap up our Dark Tower coverage until Mike Flanagan gets off his lazy ass and finally does some work. That was mean.
No shade.
That was mean. I'm sorry. It's not like he hasn't made other stuff. And then hopefully in March we're going to be bringing you an episode on Helen Keller versus the Nightwolves, from the same group of people who brought us the Ultimate Classic FDR, Great American Badass. And then our next 3 books we're going to be reviewing at the last Sunday in February. We'll drop an episode on the Two Towers. Last Sunday in March will be the Return of the King. And our next book, first time announcing, last Sunday in April, we will be reading The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon by Stephen King. We're going to break up the fantasy dense super books with one of Stephen King's shorter books. But short is not the king, and the people. Clever transition. Insert clever transition. Logan, the Full Metal patron, and Sierra, the Keyblade patron. You shall not pass. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at their stores. And if you go in there, say hi, Ron, and thank you to them. And be sure to comment on this video or any of our social media posts in the next month to get your chance to win that Chucky secret lair. Stabby, stabby. Thank you guys for reading The Fellowship of the Ring and recording with me tonight.
It was a lot more wonderful than I thought it would be, and I love it.
4.5 hours later. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Stay tuned for our socials, and stay scary.
Stay scary.
Stay scary, folks.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.